what's going on, people in Jacksonville, Florida, on the 1010XL podcast platform? I am Dylan Denmark, and Graham Marsh will be beside me momentarily on the Denmark and Marsh podcast on this beautiful Friday morning at 8:20 a.m. Coming in a little hot. I got to turn that down just a little bit. Draft is less than a week away. Trent Baalke and Doug Peterson spoke yesterday. It was more of Trent Baalke. Most of what I listened to, the first 20, 25 minutes of the 30 minutes that he spoke yesterday. Really, I kind of want to talk draft to start, and then the Trevor Lawrence extension got brought up, and it feels like that's going to happen sooner rather than later. Details, obviously, we don't know of yet, but it seems like it's going to happen. So, Graham, let's jump right into it. Trent Baalke basically was asked the question a lot of, would you rather have best available or would you rather have the need? Like, how do you go at 17? And he was asked that over and over again, and he did say that he's going to value the need over the best available. But I feel more and more like the way this draft is going to go when we get to Thursday, that the top four quarterbacks are going to go in no order: Caleb Williams, Drake May, Jaden Daniels, J.J. McCarthy. Somebody will trade up to get him, and then Marvin Harrison. And then the draft starts there. This doesn't feel like all the people and all the teams that are in front of Jacksonville, they know what they want exactly because they don't know how the board is going to fall to them. So it's kind of hard to say that you don't know what you're going to have in Jacksonville at 17 because you don't know how many of the teams in front of you who's going to be available, because you don't know if you're going to have Jared Verse that's going to be available or Brock Bowers or what corner is going to be available. So you can't say that, and be definitive that I know what everybody else is going to do in front of me, so I can say that, okay, this guy should be available, because there's we would probably say about a pool of 20 people that could go to those top 16. You're like, yeah, I could believe that.
It's one of the bigger pools of potential players that they could draft in quite some time, I would probably say. I guess maybe last year was relatively big, but last year, once Cam Robinson got suspended, it became pretty obvious they were going to take a tackle. And then obviously the 2 years before that, they were picking number one overall. So there wasn't much guessing there. 2022, there kind of was, but it was still at most like three potential players they could maybe take. And the year before was obviously no doubts Trevor Lawrence. Yeah, it's probably the most suspense of a Jaguar draft since probably 2018 when they took Taven Bryan. And obviously that was disappointing when they took him, but like that was probably the last time I was this unsure who would end up being a Jaguar. Not that last year I knew they would take Anton, but just like we said, once Cam Robinson got suspended, it was pretty clear they were going to take a tackle. And even the season before Trevor Lawrence, I guess that year had some suspense when they took C.J. Henderson and Caleb Von Chase on.
Yeah, in 20.
They really, because especially they had both picks. You really didn't know how it was going to go. Obviously, it went about as horribly as possible. But I guess that year you really weren't sure. But yeah, back to the point. It's a pretty big pool of who they could take. And correct me if I'm wrong here. He basically said that we operate as best player available. But if there's not one like clear best player available on our board and it's pretty close, then we lean to the need.
Yeah.
Right? Isn't that basically what he said?
Correct. Yeah.
Which is how you should operate, in my opinion. And that makes sense. Now with him saying that, I have some questions of some of his picks in the last couple drafts, but I digress. I don't know how you get to Brenton Strange and Tank Bigsby if that's how you're operating, but whatever. Yeah, this is what I think is going to happen, Dylan, if I had to predict.
All right.
I mean, not an exact thing, but just kind of a general sense of what I think might end up when it's like pick 14, 15, and we're kind of speculating, what's about to happen, the dominoes that are going to fall right before they pick. I bet there will be somebody, and there always is, especially in these multi-QB years, there will be someone like you're saying that will be there around like 15. Jared Verse, Brock Bowers, someone that you would have thought was going to go higher, okay? And in Jacksonville's green room, they are going to have to really discuss hard, okay, if this guy is still there at 17, whoever that is. Say it's I don't know if Bowers is a good example. Because I like that's a position they really don't need.
No.
Who's another guy that could? I guess Verse.
I'm thinking offensive tackle. It's not going to be offensive tackle.
What about like Fuaga?
Okay.
He's a tackle. He's projected basically everywhere right now to go like back half of the top 10 or like just outside it, like 8 to like 12, 13. Basically, everybody is saying that this guy is the best run blocker in the draft. Elite, like plug and play right tackle guy, like Tristan Wirfs, basically from a couple years ago. Like that's been a big comp for him. He would fit hand in glove in Jacksonville. You let Cam go, you move Anton to the left. Trent Baalke's been outspoken that Anton can play left. You plug this guy in at right. You got young bookend tackles for a few years. Solid. Okay, but he's realistically probably not going to fall to 17. Let's say he's the guy that does. He's there at 17, but the Jaguars have their heart set need-wise on a corner. They would take Fuaga in that situation.
You think so?
Yeah.
I still think
if someone of that much value at still arguably a position of need is there, I think that's what they would do.
So that's the big question that I was going to pivot to. What do you think their positions of needs are? Like, obviously, we all think corner is the number one need.
To me, the way that Trent Baalke has talked this offseason, I think corner is number one on their need list.
And I think it's a big gap between 1 and 2.
I agree.
Whatever you think number 2 is.
I agree. I think offensive line and receiver needs are more fan-driven than team-driven. And look, I agree with fans that say those are needs. You're no arguments here from me. But we have to go off of what Doug and Trent have both said throughout the offseason. And those two guys tend to not give you a lot. They coach speak and GM speak it up pretty hard. But you can read between the lines, like we've talked before, and you can kind of figure some stuff out. To me, they've been mostly outspoken about corner, especially Baalke. He said before they cut Darius Williams, he said it's no secret that we really need a corner. When Darius Williams and Tyson Campbell were on the roster,
and Darius Williams was pretty good last year.
Had a really good season. Like, if you're saying that, first of all, Baalke had to know at the time they were going to cut Darius Williams. Secondly, if he's saying that when he's still on the roster publicly, that means that they're getting a corner. They're making some type of move. And they got Ronald Darby in free agency, I know, who's basically just a cheaper, probably not quite as high ceiling Darius Williams. Like, they're drafting a corner at some point. It's just going to be a matter of if it's at 17.
The question I have is, so kind of like how I said a little bit earlier on how the board falls to you at 17. Baalke was brought the question, do you trade up? He goes, the LNX people will say it's not good to trade up. So it probably doesn't look like, from what the vibe that he was saying, that you're probably not going to trade up a couple of picks. The real question,
would be stunned at this point.
Yeah, I would be pretty surprised if they did. The question is, if your Quinion Mitchell and Terry and Arnold are gone before 17, do you go up a couple of spots to get that next best corner, or do you just stay at 17 and you just hope that a Kool-Aid or somebody else that's a corner falls into your lap and you can get one there? Because it gets to that point where we've all corner's the big need, and do you think that you can go to another position and say, okay, I'm gonna rely on getting a corner in day 2 in the second or third round? Or, because I really don't know, it seems like you're going to go O-line, D-line, corner. One of those 3 guys. You're obviously not getting a quarterback. You might get a receiver. I didn't get the vibe that they were talking a lot about receiver yesterday, unless I missed it.
In regards to the first round?
Yeah.
I, at this point, would be shocked if they took a wide receiver in the first round. even just if someone, unless like Rome Odunze falls to 17,
that's
which
different. I'm
won't
assuming,
happen.
I'm assuming like the top 3 guys are gone.
If the highest available, if the best rated receiver, who in most, and again, we don't know, this happens every single year, and all, like the Todd McShays of the world and the Mel Kiper's of the world always talk about this, and it's true. We as fans, when journalists, when we track all offseason the draft, and we're going off of what those types of guys say, like, we sort of, and I think the entire media is guilty of this as well, again, as well as fans, we sort of like start to take that as like, okay, this is sort of what the general public is saying, so that means this is what NFL teams are saying, and that's not always true. Like for example, the top corners are like Mitchell, Arnold,
Kool-Aid,
Cooper
DeJean.
Yeah. That's sort of our general consensus, like first round guys, right? And there's one other guy, Nate Wiggins.
From Clemson.
There might be some other guy that's more like a second, third round grade to most people that are on NFL Network and here at 1010XL talking about it and all that. But the Jaguars might have a first round grade on him, you know? Or they might think he's the 3rd best corner when most people have him ranked as the 7th best corner. Like it's much more of a crapshoot than people think. Like, we've just been watching draft programming for so long now that you think, okay, we have this cookie cutter view of how these guys are placed, and that's not true.
No.
So, back to the receiver thing. I tend to think, I know I just said what I said, but I would tend to think that still those 3 guys are probably how most NFL teams have it, with Marvin Harrison, Malik Neighbors, and Odunze as the top 3. I'd be stunned if those 3 weren't the first receivers off the board. But after that, it does get weird. Like, after that, I think the general consensus among most people that follow the draft is that Brian Thomas is kind of that next guy. That we don't know. That, I think, is very possible that the Jaguars or somebody else might like Ricky Pearsall better, or Xavier Legette better, or Ladd McConkey better, or Adonai Mitchell better, or Xavier Worthy better. Like, I think after those 3, I think things can get real weird in the receiver order, that like kind of the pecking order that we think can get real weird. So, like, let's say the Jags don't love Brian Thomas, and let's say they like Adonai Mitchell better, but they don't have a first round grade on Mitchell, or they have like a late first round grade that's a little bit beyond their pick. Balky's a huge value guy, so to him that probably means there's not a lot of value there at wide receiver. But Nate Wiggins is there, and they love him, and he's their second rated corner or whatever. Like, this happened with K'Lavon Chaisson, man. Like, no one had him highly rated, but the Jaguars said he was the best player. He had been the best player after CJ or something crazy. Remember that?
Mm-hmm.
Like, that's what I'm saying. And like, a lot of NFL teams, like, they have their own reports on these guys, and it's very different from what you're like thinking publicly.
It's funny that he was talking about, Balky was talking about yesterday, how, you know, most of the NFL draft, like, a lot of the guys that make the league or go undrafted, and a lot of the guys that are in the league weren't first rounders. You know, a lot of the guys are 4th, 5th, 6th, 7th guys. Most guys are. You know, and we sit here this whole time. We've spent the last 15 minutes talking about the first round, and deservedly so. You know, you can't miss on that first round, and a lot of, I hate to say that they're guessing, but it seems like once you get past that 4th, 5th round, it's like, okay, this guy definitely has flaws. We know what his strengths are, but we just hope we can fix these flaws, whether it be on the field or off the field, and we can hope it works. I mean, we saw with Antonio Johnson last year. He was the guy that was projected to go a lot earlier. We get him in the 5th round, and he's expected to play for us and be really well for Jacksonville.
Look at the Rams last year, man. Look at
they haven't had a first round pick in years.
But look at who they drafted last year in late rounds: Kyron Williams and Puka Nacua.
Yep.
2 of the best offensive players in football last year. Puka Nacua was arguably the best receiver in the NFL. He was ridiculous. And he was, what, 5th round or something like that? Like
5th or 6th, yeah.
Like, he was a late pick.
And and did you ever see the video of McVay and Les Snead, the GM and the head coach, going back and forth before they drafted him?
No.
They're like, I think this guy's good. He's like, and one of them, I forget if it was McVay or Snead, they were like sitting there, they're like contemplating, like, I think so, but I don't know. Like, even the guys that their sole purpose and GMs and the scouts that you rely on, those guys still don't know.
It's an inexact science.
Yes. I mean, like, the biggest con of Puka Nacua coming out of the draft was he couldn't get off the jam. And he goes to training camp, and the best thing was, you can't jam this guy at the line of scrimmage.
Yeah.
And, like, they had all the best DBs covering him. So it's an inexact science. And you don't know what a college player, once he finally goes pro, because this is a thing that I don't think fans understand fully. You can get by with talent and not working hard in college. You can't get away with that in the NFL. You have to hone in on your craft and study film and do all the little details that make you really good.
Well, it's the mental side of the NFL. In
yes.
my opinion. Like, that's the big difference. Is I think in college, if you're like, let's say you're a receiver in college, you don't, if you're just faster than everybody else or bigger or stronger, and you just have physical traits that are better than the DBs guarding you, then you don't need to be a precise route runner. You don't need to have perfect timing with your QB. That type of thing. In the league, you do. In the league, the best receiver in the NFL has to have that stuff nailed down, or he will struggle, right? Like, Devontae Adams has to have this. Tyreek Hill has to have this. Justin Jefferson has to have this. If they don't, they're screwed. They got to mentally know what's going on. And that's a big reason it's an inexact science, like you're talking about. And then the other thing, man, is like the last decade of football has been the closest that college football and the NFL have mirrored each other in terms of play style ever.
Specifically on offense.
And people still miss on picks all the time. So it isn't an exact science. It is a little bit of a guessing game. There's some luck involved for sure. The good GMs, though, just have better odds of it. They just have a better success rate. Just more of these guys tend to work out for them. And part of that is, how is your organization setting these guys up to succeed? Like, how often have how many different guys have the Jaguars drafted that were basically positionless and they were versatile and we're going to move them around?
Still have them.
Like, that never works, man. It never works, dude. Like, one thing I actually have appreciated, and it might actually change a little bit this year, and I'm curious to see how it goes. But with Trayvon Walker, when they drafted him, I've kind of always felt like he'd be a better player inside. But they wanted him to play edge, and they've let him play edge. They've let him learn it, figure out some pass rush moves, and for 2 full years, that is what he has played. He has played outside linebacker / edge rusher, learning how to beat tackles with pass rush moves, and then he bull rushes because he's a freak athlete. If they had taken a bunch of reps and put him inside, that would have stunted some of his growth out there, right?
Correct.
Counterpoint, Walker Little. They've moved him all over the place, and he still really hasn't figured it out.
Well, and part of it's not his fault either. I mean, Jacksonville's trying to put him every position.
Exactly. That's what I mean.
You know, you're not a guard.
That's
you
exactly.
can only play one side of the tackle, not the other, really.
Dude, it drove me insane last year when he struggled at guard and people were like befuddled that he was struggling at guard. I'm like, he's never played it in his life, man. Why is this a surprise that Walker Little is not a guard? I don't understand. He's not built like a guard. He doesn't play like a guard. Why is this a shock? Leon Searcy says it all the time. He's somebody we should all take advice from in terms of offensive line play. You just can't mix and match these guys like they've played all 5 positions before. That's not how it works. And it is like look, left and right tackle, sure. As long as you let that guy move to that spot and stay there for a little while and learn it, I don't think that's a huge deal. Left and right guard, I think, is even less of a deal. But like moving a guard to center, moving a center to guard, moving a tackle to guard, moving a guard to tackle, like that stuff is going to be an issue. And even, back in the day, we're going way back. You remember Matt Jones, quarterback turned receiver, Denard Robinson, offensive weapon, Ace Sanders, are going to move them all over the field. Laviska Shenault, can they play running back? Has this ever worked? Ever? No. So the entire reason I'm making that point is it's just a clear-cut example of times in the past that the Jaguars, and not as much with this regime, to be fair. With this regime, it's really just Walker. But it's times in the past where the Jaguars have not set up their draft picks to succeed. It's not a coincidence, Dylan, and I think you're gonna fully agree with me on this. It's not a coincidence that the same franchises seem to always have the 4th-round pick be a home run. The 6th-round pick be a home run. The undrafted guy be a home run. You know what I mean? Doesn't it always seem to be the same teams?
Because those guys, they know, those good teams, they know what they want organizationally from the top to the bottom, from the owner to the GM to the head coach. They have a good scouting department, and they know what they want.
And when that guy comes in, he has a clear position. He knows what he's supposed to do.
And he knows his role.
He knows his role. He's probably got a really good position coach. Position coaches are the most underrated people on NFL staffs and on every staff. You know this. You've been on a coaching staff. That's the person you spend the majority of your time with, is your position coach. They probably have really good position coaches. Like, it's who is it? It's the Ravens. The Ravens always seem to have these guys. They always every year there's some 4th-round pick you've never heard of that's really good for them. Last year, Mark Andrews went out. Isaiah Likely's a beast. Okay, he's like a 3rd or 4th-round pick, I'm pretty sure.
Mm-hmm.
Not as much right now because they've been struggling, but the Steelers have always been this team. They've always had good late-round picks.
Receivers. Always. They're the best. They were the best organization in the league at getting receivers.
Yes.
Out of the draft.
And it's rarely ever 1st-round picks.
Correct.
Not as much now, but historically when Brady and Belichick were there, the Patriots had these late-round guys and these undrafted guys. Like, they'd have like Chris Hogan's would come out of nowhere and be really good. Julian Edelman, like these types of dudes. And then you have other organizations that, like the Jaguars historically, that just always seem to draft poorly. And I don't think it's a coincidence. I don't think, when we just talked about how much of a guessing game the draft can be, I don't think it's because certain teams are just that bad at drafting and other teams are just that good at drafting. It's because of the culture and how they're set up to succeed in that organization.
Yeah, I'd agree there. And Jacksonville needs to do more of that, obviously, if they want to win more games and make the playoffs and make a run consecutive years.
And by the way, I know we're about to talk about it, I'm pretty sure. I think I know what our next topic is. Discussing the Trevor Lawrence extension and kind of getting into that, and then Josh Allen just getting extended. Like, stuff like that helps that image and helps that kind of culture building and setting up guys to succeed, because these are guys that the organization invested in heavily that are going to be here long term.
So it does feel like this extension is going to happen sooner than later.
Agreed.
I don't know if you forget the dude's Twitter handle. The dude that predicted all the free agencies, the moves before they happened, like an hour or two or a day or two. Yeah. I think I didn't find it, but Hack told me last night that he said that this extension could happen before the draft.
Wow, that's crazy.
Which I would be surprised. I would probably be shocked if it happened within the next 5 days. Regardless if that happens or not, this extension is going to happen sooner than later. The numbers, I don't know what they're going to be and the amount of years. You'd expect it to be 40 to 50 million, just like every other big quarterback, like Dak Prescott and all guys of that nature, the Kirk Cousins.
Per year.
Correct.
For at least 5 years.
Probably 6 to 7 years. I think it's going to happen by the summer, and I think Jacksonville should do it. You can't go into your last year of a contract not knowing who your quarterback is going to be for the future, because regardless if he does good or bad, that's going to be the only main topic for the middle of the season. If you're 3-5 or you're 6-2, regardless.
And how nice would it be if going into next offseason, like you're saying, or like after the season, going into the next offseason, how nice would it be if that's just done? Like, that doesn't have to be a big storyline. That doesn't have to be a huge thing you're worried about. I mean, for us, content-wise, it might not be as good, but just for the Jaguars, how nice would it be to just have that headache over?
Yeah, just drop it in like the second week of July. That is no sports, no
that'd
MLB.
be
There's
great,
nothing
yep.
going on. Just drop it right there on that Monday, and we can talk about it for about 3 weeks.
Dude,
until camp.
we'll ride that right into training camp.
100%.
Be perfect.
100%.
But I am for it as well, very much for it, for a couple of reasons. Probably the first and most important is if you didn't extend Trevor and just say that after, say they didn't do any contract at all and he'd play out this season, you would assume they'd just pick up his option the next year, and then if they never extended, which won't happen, and then they'd let him walk and go somewhere. That would be the other alternative, right? For the Jaguars, what would then be your options in replacing Trevor? You got to do one of two things. You either got to draft a rookie and start over, or you got to play the mid free agent QB game when you grossly overpay a guy. Do you have any interest in either of those?
No.
Oh, yeah, me neither.
No.
And I don't think anybody listening does. So if you are not willing to do one of those options, then let's get this extension done. And you get it done earlier, it's going to save you some money down the road. I don't know how much that necessarily matters, because when you're talking about a 6 to 7 year deal, the cap is going to look so much different by then anyways. It probably won't. And look, if Trevor's like, it's crazy to say you could outperform a contract of that much money, but if he's outperforming it by that point because the cap has gone up even more, he's just going to want to restructure anyway. This is really about not having to worry about a contract deal with Trevor at all for the next 5 years. Not like the literal entire duration of the contract. The other reason you pay him is because of the savings, like we just said. Like, it seems like a lot of money. It's weird to say savings, but if you get him extended now, 4 years from now, he'll be the what? Probably 7th paid highest QB.
Well, and then also you run the scenario of like what you have with Josh Allen, where you could have paid him last year and you didn't, and you probably could have saved a lot more money than what you just paid him. And if Trevor goes off and has a great year, then you got to pay even more if you want to play that waiting game, because Balky's said over and over again he doesn't negotiate during the season.
Yeah.
So once you get to September, you don't have a deal done. Well, you're going to have to wait all the way until February, March. And you just don't want to play that game. I understand that Trevor didn't play well, and there's many deficiencies, and I still don't like the way he plays a situational football that he does in the red zone, turning the ball over, holding the ball too long. Yes, there's many factors that go with that, but Doug Peterson has said, now, again, you don't know if this is coach speak or if he's really meaning this when he says this, that he is light years ahead of what he has been the last couple of years when it comes to situational football. And I think Trevor knows that. Obviously, he has to know that. I just think that as you go into year 4, where it's put up or shut up time, and you know you're playing for a contract potentially, and this is really like the last window where you're getting cheap and you can rely on getting guys like Eric Armstead and paying big guys in free agency, because once you pay the quarterback, and we've seen this all over the NFL, you're hamstrung to him and you're hamstrung to Josh Allen. So you need those guys to perform, and you're fully reliant on the draft and just paying guys a couple $1 million and then performing well.
I'm not going to lie, I don't love the idea of fully relying on the draft with Trent Baalke as GM.
Yeah, well, it's what you're going to have to do.
Yeah.
Because you can't rely on free agency and hope to overpay guys, and because then you're going to be you got the good, you got the okay, and then you got the bad. And then you're going to rely on those bad guys to be doing a good job, essentially.
What the hope is that you kind of develop this, and I don't think they'll ever get to this level, but just in the idea of it. And I think they had this a little bit in 2022, and they lost it last year. Hopefully, if they rebuild the offensive line a bit and that side of things gets better, then they might get back to it a little bit. But the hope is, with the Doug Peterson system and with Trevor Lawrence playing at least like back end of the top 10 of QBs level football, then at that point you have created a kind of plug and play offense where a lot of different guys can succeed, a little bit like Rashee Rice in Kansas City this year. A guy that nobody was really talking much about preseason ends up becoming their best weapon and ends up really being an important factor all throughout the year, all the way up to winning a Super Bowl. So I think the hope will be that you can kind of be in that range. Like, when Trevor gets paid, and now that Josh is paid, 3 years from now, they'll be here. Will Christian Kirk be here? Will Zay Jones be here? Will Travis Etienne be here? Will Evan Ingram be here? Like, all these other guys they've paid in free agency in the last few years, and then I know Travis was a draft pick, become big question marks. A lot of those guys probably will not be here. So you're going to have to replace them. And you're probably going to need, just like you just said, you're going to need that 4th round receiver to step up and make plays. And if Trevor is high completion percentage, efficient, not a lot of picks, he's well protected, they're running the ball well, that can certainly happen. Parker Washingtons of the world can really blossom. If it's clunky like it was last year, that ain't happening. So I think if Trevor gets extended and they can have at least the year they had last year in terms of wins, but the offense just looks cleaner, even if they miss the playoffs, I think it's okay. I want them to make the playoffs, obviously, but the AFC South is going to look a lot better. But you would then hopefully be set up for the next 4 years of a legitimate playoff run. And I think the worst case at that point would be we're a borderline playoff team every year and we just take our chances.
So Trevor spoke, was it Tuesday, I think, to everybody, to the media, and he brought up the play calling situation, and he said that Press Taylor, to him, is going to be the one calling plays. From everything that we heard from the combine, from what Doug said, not what he said on the podium, but in the media scrum after he spoke on the podium, Mia O'Brien, and there was a couple other people that were down there or up there in Indianapolis that said that it looks like Doug's calling plays. So then I say that we have John Osher, Jaguar senior writer. He comes on the show on Jaguars Today Wednesday. He said he doesn't think that Doug Peterson sees it as a big deal of who's really calling plays, because it's really Doug's offense. Press Taylor's really calling the plays. It looks like as of the moment, there hasn't been a definitive answer. And, the fans want Doug Peterson to call it because they think Doug's a lot better than Press. I still think that eventually at some point of the year, even if he doesn't come out and say it, I still think Doug takes over play calling at some point during the season.
I don't disagree. Something that did bother me a little bit last year, though, in terms of how the fans were reacting to it, is there almost became this narrative of when the offense played well and good stuff was happening, everybody was like, Doug must have taken over play calling duties. And then when it was bad,
it's all Press's fault.
What the hell's wrong with Press? And it's guys, it's probably not that simple. And they play callers have said before that it's always this kind of combo thing. And most teams across the league don't give you a straight answer on that. It's not just exclusive to the Jags. But I just got news for everybody that's listening that hates Press Taylor. And I'm not a huge Press Taylor fan either. I'm not trying to tell you that I think Press Taylor is Andy Reid. I'm just saying that more than likely at some point this year, if Doug did call any plays throughout the year, which I'm sure he did, Doug probably called some plays that you didn't like and you hated. And Press probably called some plays that you thought, damn, what a play call. That probably happened. It's just not as simple as when the offense is bad, that means Press is calling plays. When the offense is good, that means Doug is calling plays. Journalists and fans, we love to look for a black and white answer to things. And we love to look for this one reason is why this was bad. It's it was it wasn't just Press, man. It's not as simple as, because people want the simple answer of, oh, get rid of press, we're cooking. It's 2020. It's late 2022 again. Well, not necessarily, because there were a lot of times, like, look, when it was 1st and 10 and the Jaguars ran the ball and Travis Etienne got stuffed behind the line of scrimmage for 2 yards, is that Press Taylor's fault? Or is that the offensive line's fault?
That's the player's fault.
Right, exactly. Like, the players deserve accountability here, man. Like, look, I'm sure if one of us was calling plays, and no disrespect, but the traffic cone with arms that was Luke Fortner in the middle of the line that was getting blown up every play, that's going to throw a wrench in your play calling, man. And everybody was mad. This kind of bothered me too. What was one of the main things people got really mad about with Press? Like one of the play calls he would do a lot that pissed people off. It was those receiver screens, right? To either side, those tunnel screens. Because they weren't really working most of the year. I get it. But man, he was hamstrung. That offensive line got so bad that he just had to get the ball away from it. He took the ball away from the middle of the field as quickly as possible. So I would tend to think Press is going to call plays again, and Doug will probably take over at certain points of the season, like I'm sure he did last year. But we are never going to know the true answer. Like, we're not going to know after the game if the Jaguars are down 14 in the third quarter and then the offense figures it out and has a comeback win. If somebody asks Doug in the postgame,
who called that play?
Did you take over the play calling? He will not answer. He will not give you the real answer.
And here's the thing that I think
he's going to give you something of, it's a combination type thing.
This is what I think really happens. Okay, during the week, it's Doug's offense, and Doug and Press, they collaborate. They go, you have a script. So any offensive guy, you have a script for what you want to do situationally, goal line, red zone, 1st and 10, 2nd and short, 2nd and long, 3rd, yada, yada, yada. I think they're on the same page with that. And then during the game, you communicate and you go, okay, I want to run this. I want to run this. Now, Doug, he's the head honcho. He's the head guy. So you say, if he wants to run the ball on this 3rd and 1, you're running the ball. Like, it doesn't matter if Press wants to say, well, I want to throw. If you have a good relationship, which I think they do, and Doug says run the ball, you run the ball. If he says throw the ball, you throw the ball. So it's not so much, like you said, it's not black and white. And I don't know if it's that as much of a big of a deal as fans make it out to be. It's just one of those things where things aren't working well. Everything's up in war. Because I remember 2 years ago, Doug calls plays in the first half and Press calls plays in the second half. And the second half on a lot of those games against the Ravens, against the Cowboys, and a lot of those
Chargers.
Games, where Jags were trailing from behind, and Press is the one calling the plays, and it wasn't that big of a deal because you're winning. I don't like basing everything based on a result, because the process can be right, but the result could be off by a yard, and that's that. So it is what it is to me. Is that it for us?
Yes, sir.
All right. I'm Dylan Denmark. That's Graham Marsh on the Denmark and Marsh podcast on the 1010XL podcast platform. We appreciate you listening. Everybody enjoy your weekend, and we'll be back probably Tuesday to talk about the draft one last time.
Yes, sir. It's crazy this next week.
Yeah.
That's fast.
It was. See y'all.